Hey, somebody's got to inflate the footballs. You have? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. This week, the Professional Noticer is sponsored by Books for Veterans. The Veterans Administration in Washington, D.C. has asked for 10,000 Andy Andrews books. I'm personally donating as many as I can, but to reach 10,000, I need your help. What we're able to do to make that easier for you is for every $10 donation you make, a hardback book will be sent to the Veterans Administration for veterans, their families, and for employees of the VA. That $10 will cover the cost of the hardback book, the shipping, and the handling. So whether you can make this a personal gift or your business can make a corporate donation, just go to andyandrews.com/veterans. And this can be added to a website purchase or done as an individual entry. And thank you very much for your support. Observations and answers, that's what we do here on the Professional Noticer. And we love it when somebody comes to the table with both. And today we have a woman that Bleacher Report named as one of the 25 most influential women in sports business in the world. And we've had Kelli as a guest before, and it's rare that we have somebody back, but she was so great the first time, and we've got something new to talk about today. But Kelli is an attorney, an NFL sports agent, and founder and president of KMM Sports. It's a full-service sports management company based in Oklahoma City. And Kelli has represented more professional athletes than any woman in the industry. And she was the first woman in history to represent a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. And she represents Major League Baseball players and Olympians. And please welcome Kelli Masters.
Hi, Andy. Thank you so much for having me back.
Hey, I'm so glad to have you back. And I'm so excited about your news. I'm so excited about the book because you were working on it the last time we were here. But now it is like looming. It's available for pre-order, but it's out very soon. It's High Impact Life.
I am so excited. So excited. And I think I talked to you before I even started down the path of writing a book because your books had been such a huge part of my life. And I can't believe it's actually happening. It's here. So
well,
very excited.
Listen, you are going to have a blast doing this. And I love the subtitle. I always tell people when they're working on a book, I say your title is kind of your message, but your subtitle explains what the book is about. And I think you have a great subtitle. The title is High Impact Life. And the subtitle is A Sports Agent's Secrets to Finding and Fulfilling a Purpose You Can't Lose. Perfect.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
So I have to admit that I didn't initially come up with that. That wasn't the title or the subtitle that I initially was going with. My original title was Dream Job for my book. And
right.
And it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing because that's what everybody says when they hear that I'm a sports agent. Oh, that's a dream job. And they have no idea. No idea what it actually looks like or what the journey has actually been. And it really, my answer when people would say, oh, you have a dream job, I would say, well, yes, you can think that, but the reason why it's a dream come true for me is because I get to impact lives. I get to actually have an impact on people on athletes who then go out and influence maybe millions of lives. So I get to live a high impact life. So that's where the title came from. It's not a dream job, it is a high impact life. And that's not just for me or for people with cool looking jobs, that's for everybody. Everybody can make a high impact.
Well, the way you explained what you do right there is having a high impact on these people who have impact on millions. That I guess kind of describes that you have big butterfly wings. You know that
Yeah.
you're making a huge mark right off the bat, and
Absolutely.
so tell us, tell us what the book entails. I think it's so important. I have a coach. People ask me about coaching people, and I coach people and I coach companies, but I have a coach, and one of the things that Mark continues to tell me is he says it's your purpose. Your purpose is the key. The purpose is the key. If you lose that focus on that purpose, you're losing ground. And so I love that you have focused on that, and these are practical tips and tools to stay with that focus. So explain a little bit about that.
Well, it's, as I entered into the sports agent industry, I had I thought I knew what I was getting into. I had no idea what it was actually going to be like. And along the way, I feel like I've unlocked some secrets uh, to having that impactful life. And it really, truly does come back to living a purposeful life, knowing what your purpose is, which evolves over time. And people would say, "Oh, you found your calling, as a sports agent." Well, yeah, my being a sports agent is my assignment. I feel like my calling is much greater, but my purpose in life is to serve. And it's as simple as that. And if I can drill down, I remember really the moment in my life when I discovered that, and the story is in the book. Um, was I realized that my entire life I'd been a very driven person, had accomplished a lot of my goals, but it was all driven from a place of fear of failure, fear of not being enough, fear of letting people down, letting down my parents, letting down my coaches. And fear can be a motivator for sure, but long term it doesn't lead you to a fulfilling place if you're constantly striving to achieve because you're afraid to fail or you're afraid of what other people think of you. And so I made a really intentional switch in my life from being driven by fear to being driven by what is my purpose? How do I discover that? How do I discover my purpose on this earth, my God-given destiny? How do I discover what impact I'm supposed to make? And then how do I walk that out? So the book basically shares the 10 most important things that I learned about discovering my purpose, which was to serve, and then helping others. That's the extension of that purpose, is helping others also figure out what their purpose is and how do you walk that out. So every chapter has a story from my life, my journey. It has a couple of stories from my NFL players or my players that were struggling to make it to the NFL, and the ups and downs of that journey. And which I think will, even for non-football fans, which I grew up in Oklahoma, so I believe everybody's a football fan.
Right.
But even for people who don't care about sports, I think they're going to love the stories of the players as human beings and what they went through, and discovering their identity beyond just the sport that they were well known for. And then each chapter ends with an inspirational story or something that's impacted my life. Most of the time, it's going to be someone that I read about in the Bible that I identified with and said, "Oh, I recognize that struggle or that decision or that trial," and seeing someone overcome that and how they did it and how they sought God's wisdom, and it was ultimately the answer to me. So that's a little taste of what the book is going to be like. It's quite a journey.
Well, I think this is such a great leadership book because I think you're right that it doesn't matter if somebody is a football fan or not, because this is a people book. This is
Yes.
it's a story of kids and parents and opportunity and risk and tell us just one of the 10. Okay, I used to hate it when I would do interviews for the Traveler's Gift, and they said, "Tell us what the 7 decisions are." I'm like, "Well, okay," but just give us one and dial in on that for a minute.
Oh my gosh, which one should I talk about? I mean, every single one of them was so personal to me. My favorite is probably fighting in your own armor. And it basically alludes to the story of David and Goliath, but from a different perspective than most people look at the David and Goliath story. They think of the little untrained shepherd boy taking on the valiant warrior that was, larger than life, and how he ended up taking him down. And everyone knows that part of the story, but a lot of people don't look at the story of what happened just before the battle, where Goliath was defeated. And right before that battle, David is pulled aside by the king, and the king says, "Well, I'll allow you to fight Goliath, but you need to wear this armor. You need my armor." And the king takes off and gives him his own coat of mail and his own sword and his shield. And in the Bible, it says David walked around and it felt cumbersome. It didn't feel right to him. And so he gave the king's armor back to him and took his slingshot and his stones, and he went out and walked into his destiny in the story that everybody knows. And so I focus on that part of the story because David was willing to fight in his own armor. He didn't need the king's armor. He didn't need to be someone else or have someone else's resources or skill set or training. He needed to walk in his own training, his own God-given gifts, and what he had been prepared through his life to do. So in looking at that story, I realized that all of us as human beings tend to compare ourselves. We look at what other people have or how other people act or their talents or their whatever they have. And we say, well, I don't have that. I can't be that successful because I don't have what she has or what he has. I don't talk like that. I don't act like that, whatever. I don't have those experiences. But every one of us we are all equipped with what we need to accomplish what God has called us to do, what our purpose is in life. And as long as we keep our eyes off of comparison and saying we don't have what we need, we realize that we can fight in our own armor. We don't need the king's armor. Like David didn't need the king's armor. He just needed to fight in his own armor.
That's a great analogy. And I think you're probably a perfect example for us of this because you certainly, when you walked in to your first agents meeting at the Combine, you had taken your test. You were one woman, and how many men in the room taking their test?
There were about 300 men taking the test.
And that was in DC.
Yes.
And so then when you you passed, and so when you walk into your first agents meeting at the Combine in Indianapolis, how many men were in there with you?
About 900.
About 900. And so you're a perfect example of this because you appear, you would have appeared to be extremely unequipped.
Right.
Right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you're an extreme example of this. And we can look at you and say, if Kelli can figure out that puzzle of that industry and not just succeed, but thrive in it, surely we can.
I think I told the story the last time.
Tell it.
I'll share a little more and then a follow-up to it. So at that first meeting, and I talk about this in the book, I walk out of the meeting at one point just to kind of get my composure. And one of the most powerful agents in the business, one of the most successful, sees me, doesn't know me, I don't know him, I know who he is, walks up to me and says, what are you doing here? And how many clients do you have? And I said, well, I'm an agent like you, and I have, one client. And he laughed and said, well, let me tell you why you don't belong here. And he proceeded to give me this lecture of basically saying everything that I was struggling with internally. You're not experienced. Nobody respects you. Everyone in there thinks you're a joke. Women will never make it in this industry. You're never going to be respected by players or by coaches or by teams. You just
Wow,
need to
what a
find
nice guy. What a nice
I
guy.
know, right? And the thing was, the sad thing was, I think he thought he was helping me out. That he was telling me, oh, poor thing, you just don't know that you're going to be a failure and a joke. And obviously he was wrong. And I stopped him in the middle of his lecture and said, okay, are you done with your lecture? Because you don't know me. You don't know why I'm here. You don't know what I'm capable of. And you're going to have to deal with me someday. And I walked away from that. And quite honestly, I wish I could say I felt all proud of myself, but my heart was racing. My knees were shaking. I was really, really, it was such a pivotal moment, but I'll never forget it because I walked away and thought, okay, now I actually really have to go prove myself. I have to go prove him wrong. But the funny thing was, the things that he was saying at the time were probably pretty true. I didn't have a lot of experience. I didn't have any experience. I was brand new in the business. I didn't really know anybody, but you know what? When he started, he didn't either. He was a novice too at some
Right.
point.
And it's awesome for me to be able to say he wasn't just wrong. He was really wrong. I mean, you have gone on to make him really wrong.
Well, and it's it's now 16 years later, and I can look back and laugh and say at the time, yeah, he was kind of right in that moment that I didn't have experience. He was wrong about my future though, and that's why we can't let comparison or even what people think of us or say to us. We can't sit in that place of discouragement. We have to look and say that may be where I am right now, but that does not affect my future.
Right. And this guy was the man.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. He was
I mean,
representing.
I think I know who this is. And
Yeah, he had the number one pick that year.
yeah,
So,
yeah, and it's just it would have been easy for you to go, well, who knows more about this than he does? And if he thinks this, and it's like my story with the Traveler's Gift. The Traveler's Gift has sold millions of copies, but 51 publishers said what I had written was not worth putting on paper.
amazing.
It's turned down 51 times. And so certainly they knew more about the publishing business than I ever will. But so I
It's
think
funny
that is
because-
just,
Go ahead.
yeah, well, it turns out, as it turns out, that, I mean, you wouldn't have chosen it. I wouldn't have chosen it in a million years. But as it turns out, it's working for both of us. I mean,
Yes.
that's a great story.
It's so true. And I will say this, I give you so much credit. Because I think one of the times the first time I got a signed copy of the Traveler's Gift from you, you had written persist, with your signature. And I
Right.
don't know how many hundreds of times I would pull out that book in my toughest moments and I would just flip open the book and I would see persist written really big. And that's the power of those written words. That's my prayer for my book, is that someone, and maybe it's not going to be a bestseller, but maybe someone out there is going to be in their lowest moment and they're going to flip open the book and they're going to read something that's going to cause them to take that next step or to keep fighting the good fight, because that's what you did for me. So
Well,
here we
I
are.
appreciate you saying that. And I've got some book advice for you. Okay.
Okay, I am all
And
ears.
so this is your first book, right?
It is.
Okay, so here's my advice about this book. You said maybe it's not going to be a bestseller. Okay, well, maybe it's not going to be a bestseller yet,
Yet.
right? But the yet is a huge part of this. And just remember, your publisher, they have tons of books. This one is yours, and it is yours for the rest of your life. And the people who 5 years from now who get a hold of this book, it might as well have come out the week before.
That's true.
Right?
That's
And
true.
so,
Yeah.
so that's what I always think about, with my books, because they don't always do good at first, but we've got a lifetime to add value to that book, and so I am honored to help in a small way, here, like by encouraging people to go and pre-order this book right now on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, but the book is awesome, and I think that it will help you with your children, it will help you with your employees, it will help you with your employers, it'll help you with your friends, and obviously the major thing is it'll help you. So there's nothing like taking interesting experience and turning it into lessons for us, and that's what you've done here. So,
Thank you so much.
hey,
Well,
where can we keep in touch with you? Where can people follow you?
Well, I have a website, kellymasters.com. It's Kelly with an I, masters like the golf tournament.com. And there are links to all my social media and everywhere that I post, and everything is on there. People can pre-order my book or order it after August 3rd. And yeah, that's the best place to stay in touch.
Okay, Kelly, we will put that information on the show notes with a picture of your book, and we're so excited for you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Andy. Appreciate you as always.
I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing that tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Goalpost provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by subscriptionstoppers.com. Are you tired of having subscriptions roll over year after year on your credit card just because you forgot to cancel the darn thing? Is there an app subscription or a monthly magazine you just can't get rid of? Let subscriptionstoppers.com rescue you from unwanted expenses and annoyance by logging on to our site and simply plugging in your social security number and banking codes. We'll get right to work. There are lots of ways we can help. Just last year, we intervened for the Gulf Coast and canceled their Hurricane of the Month subscription. We've worked for the city of Seattle and completely stopped the daily rain commitment they've been tied to for years. Are you getting unwanted checks from your employer or suffering the aggravation of unwelcome direct deposits into your bank account just when you think your checkbook is balanced? Subscription Stoppers can take care of that too. And best of all, we work for free. That's subscriptionstoppers.com, a part of the Nigerian Prince Network.